During the day and during each season we have ebbs and flows in motivation. However, how can we stay motivated when the motivation hits a low? This video will give you 3 ways to study when motivation is low. Think of skills instead of tasks. Thinking of a task drains the enjoyment out of it. For instance, the perspective of writing an essay is not so enticing. In contrast, improving one's skills is much more interesting. You can choose to cultivate the skill that you want through the process that completes the task. Not only that the process will give you more joy, but it will also grow the traits you want to develop long term. An example that illustrates this point is, for instance, an essay on free will. Although writing an essay on free will is boring, you can cultivate the skill of synthesis. Thus, rather than focusing on writing the essay, you can focus on reading on multiple perspectives about free will. Then you can summarize each perspective and integrate it into an essay. Maybe you ask, but how could the synthesis skill help me in my career? For once, synthesizing is a skill useful in meetings. Usually meetings tend to be bland and long-winded. Being able to synthesize everyone's point of view on different topics will enhance the value your boss has about you. Another area where synthesis is useful is in negotiation and communication. It allows for clear communication. For instance, synthesizing both your point of view as well as your boss's point of view regarding promotion will help in better defining the goals to get the promotion. The key learning point is to ask yourself, what skill do I want to develop through this task? The second way to do a task when motivation is low is to emphasize iteration and experimentation rather than task completion. Firstly, a task has to be enticing enough to pass you through the low motivation period. We already discussed how thinking of a skill that is developed through the process of completing the task enhances the motivation. Now it is time to build flexibility and perspective by iterating differently every time you engage with a task. Coming back to the example above of writing the essay, you can experiment with word choices. Once you can choose to say, for example, or to exemplify, the next time you write an essay, you might choose to illustrate or for illustration purposes. The feedback you will receive on both of them will give you a more nuanced understanding of this word choice. Rest assured that when there is no professor to give you feedback, there are other ways to receive feedback. For instance, in the case of programming, you will always have the debugging console. Substack represents a coding community that will also provide some feedback on it. In the case of writing the essay, you can leave the essay for 2 or 3 days, rereading it and taking notes on how each word choice influenced your reading. There are 2 key takeaways from the experimentation method. Firstly, every time you engage with a task, ask yourself, how do you want to improve, or what do you want to change from the last iteration? The second key takeaway is to either ask for feedback or to give yourself feedback at distance. Let me know down in the comments how do you experiment with your tasks. The last habit is more about an attitude, namely flexibility and focus time is prioritized over fixed number of hours worked. Establishing for oneself that 3 hours a day of work is the fixed amount to do per day will make the process even more dreadful when motivation is low. In comparison, observing the ebbs and flows of your energy and adjusting the focus time to it is a natural and wiser decision. If we take USMLE's preparation as an example, it is better to gauge your attention by asking yourself, how much could I do today? You might not be able to do one block in an hour. Rather, you can go through 20 questions if you have enough energy spared for the next 30 minutes. The key habit is to ask yourself before engaging with the task how much you can achieve realistically without burning out. If you build those habits, it is high time you thought about which direction you want to take. This video will make your vision a reality.